You know, in the mammoth video list for all the videos I have planned out between seasons 5 and 6, Chloé actually only appears twice. To compare her to Felix with the double standards, and like an overall analysis with her arc, and we haven't got around to doing the second one yet because Thomas Astruc keeps yapping. Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Chloé again. But we're going to be very, very specific about it. Yes, it is going to be about her redemption arc, or her lack of one obviously, because the other week slash month slash I've lost all concept of time and days of the week since I finished high school, which was when I was 15, and I'm going to be 28 this month. It's been a while. But basically Thomas Astruc and Sebastian, whose name I can't pronounce but it begins with a T, they did an interview and they talked about many things, like for example how Adrian is useless. That's paraphrasing, but it's also probably true. And one thing they discussed was Chloé and her redemption, and I thought it merited a deeper discussion than just like a little spoiler video I made that just went through like all the different kind of significant comments they both made in the interview. So let's discuss it together, and when I say discuss, I'm going to tell you why they're completely wrong. So if you don't remember what he said, I will tell you. We put the characters in situations and then we say to ourselves, what would be the logic? How would the character logically react in such and such situation? Which apparently in Revolution they decided Andre resigning as mayor, that Chloé's logical reaction to that was to then become mayor. And perhaps you disagree, but to me that does defy all logic currently known to mankind. Anyway, continuing. And we tried everything. But every time we say to ourselves, if we write this, it'll be wrong. There'll be no reason. It'll come out of nowhere. And sadly the statement doesn't go on to acknowledge that the mayor plotline also came out of nowhere. It'll come out of nowhere. The fact that she'll face something nice and say, oh, I've been horrible, Marinette, what have I done? From now on I'll be... No, nonsense. I understand people's desire for Chloé to be nice. I'd like that too.
Lies, lies, and more lies, and lies on top of lies.
But I'd like it if in real life, people with a lot of power suddenly start doing nice things. But Chloé has no interest in changing. She has no reason to change, unfortunately. Personally, I think I've heard less lies come out of Donald Trump's mouth. Anyway, we're going to break it down, starting with just the general idea of a redemption. Because to me, maybe you interpreted it differently, but this statement communicates to me that Thomas, Sebastian and the team in general wouldn't approach a redemption as an arc. To him, from what he says in this statement, it's more of a moment, a redemption moment, a singular moment where a character is like, oh my god, what am I doing? What have I done? This moment, which is shown with Felix in the show. In Emotion, when he snaps Red Moon, that seems to be his singular redemption moment. He's on the roof, he's crying, he's completely devastated, he's like, oh my god, what have I done? What have I been doing? I need to change, I can't continue like this. And I would argue from pretension to recreation, even though he doesn't show up for the finale to help with the fight, Felix is largely not necessarily the best person with the best morals in the show, but certainly a better person than he has been from Emotion and previously in the show, all his other appearances. Yes, he does kidnap Kagami in pretension, I know, but you could argue he was doing it for nice reasons, although the police wouldn't accept that as a valid defense, so don't do that. But you know, Felix didn't kidnap Kagami because he was going to torture her then murder her. He was trying to save her from her own mum. So Felix in Emotion crying on the roof, that moment seems to be his redemption moment. And I'm gonna end up saying that word a lot in this video. And from that point on, the next time we see him in pretension, he has weird ways of going about things, but he does seem like he is really trying to change. He is a fairly good person in pretension. No, he doesn't fully trust Ladybug and Cat Noir yet, but he's not awful in that episode. He does much more awful actions prior to that in the show, such as in Strike Back, and in his debut he does much more awful things. And I'm only speaking of my preference here, and perhaps some of you will disagree, but as a viewer, to have that one moment of Felix completely broken on the roof, and then the next episode to be a largely good person, I found that extremely unsatisfying to watch. Again, you may disagree, but for me, I found that very unsatisfying, that he just literally changes overnight. Especially after all he's done. You know, he came in his debut, tried to assault Ladybug, got 3 people akumatized, stole a wedding ring. That means a lot to Gabriel. I understand it's Nanook as well, but it was also a wedding ring that meant a lot to Gabriel. And then he stole the Miraculous a whole season later, and then the season after that, snapped everyone in Paris, if not the world. I'm never sure if it's just the city, just the country, or literally everyone. Unsure. But anyway, snapped people. And after no atonement for that, he hasn't actually tried. He hasn't said sorry to anyone. At no point, apart from Red Moon. It was the only person he apologised to, was to Red Moon. Okay, but after that moment in emotion on the rooftop, he's just now suddenly a good person, without really showing the audience that he is sorry, or the gradual changes he would realistically have to make to become a better person. Which is another reason why I personally find it unsatisfying to watch, because I find it quite unrealistic. So, slight tangent here, but I promise it's relevant. Moving away from Miraculous to my real life. I had a bully in high school. I was bullied in high school, which I'm sure is a common experience most of you can relate to. So high school in the UK, where I'm from, in England, is 5 years long. And I know in America and other countries you call them grades. We don't call them grades, we call them years, but they mean the same thing. So we start at age 11 in year 7, and we finish at age 15, 16 in year 11. So I finished when I was 15 because my birthday's in August, so the school year ends in July, and my birthday's during the summer holiday before the next academic year. So I finished when I was 15, but most people finish when they're 16. Only the summer babies finish when they're 15. So at the start of year 7, when I was 11 years old, a girl started to bully me. It was literally 2 weeks in, and she was like, I'm gonna bully you. Great. Went on for a couple of months before I finally told my mum, and she rang the school and the teacher spoke to her, and she did stop, and it was fine. However, I wasn't the only one she bullied. She was very similar to Chloe. She was rude to everyone, including the teachers. I basically had a real life Chloe before Miraculous existed. I'm 27, like this was years before Miraculous existed, and some of the teachers went off with stress because of this one singular girl, very similar to Chloe. And by the time we got to year 9, which is the 3rd year, when we're like 13 years old, she had like bullied almost everyone in the year group at that point, including some of her own friends, which meant she was then left completely on her own. Now, I don't know the reasons why she was this horrible. I do assume she had a bad home life, something going on at home with her parents, maybe siblings or other extended family. I don't know. As you can imagine, I was very uninterested in getting to know her. Like, I can still remember some of the horrible things she said to me, so I have no idea why she was the way she was. Don't know. Either way, she bullied pretty much everyone until she was completely alone, and she was like, I don't want to be alone, so I need to be nicer to other people, I need to change. And she very, very slowly, in year 9, year 10, year 11, over 3 years, very slowly began to change. She focused on her friends first and getting them back so she wouldn't be so alone, and then she tried to be nicest to the teachers so she would actually get good marks in class, and then extended that to everyone else in the year group. She became a lot nicer, just in general, to everyone. So she had a moment of realization, which Felix has an emotion. He has that moment of realization where he's like, oh my god, what am I doing? I shouldn't be doing this. And then this girl very slowly became a better person. And by the time we got to the end of year 11, she was a really lovely girl. The last time I saw her, because after everything I didn't want anything more to do with her, but I was just like, okay, whatever. The last time I saw her was at prom in year 11 after all of our exams. She came over, she hugged me, and she told me I looked beautiful in my dress. Now, she totally could have been lying. One last joke before the last time I ever saw her. But the girl who bullied me when we were 11 years old, I couldn't have imagined that she would ever say that to me. And it took her 3 years to fully transform from the bully she was when we were 11 to now being this 16-year-old girl who was actually really quite pleasant to be around. And it took her about 3 years to change. She had a 3-year-long redemption arc to get to that place. Now, I am in no way suggesting that any of the bad characters in Miraculous spend 3 whole years getting redeemed. As we know by now, 5 seasons is 1 year, so if you take 3 years with a redemption arc, it's going to be 15 seasons. And we haven't got time for that. Absolutely, like 15 seasons, how is that going to relate to us in the real world? I've lost count of how many years it's taken them to do 5 seasons, so I'm not suggesting they take 3 in-show, in-world years to have a redemption arc. No. Not suggesting that. However, realistically, okay, that's why I find Felix's redemption so unsatisfying, People do not change overnight. It is a gradual thing that happens over an extended period of time. Some people may not need 3 years like this bully I had in high school, but people do need time, whether it's a year or, let's just say for the sake of Miraculous, a whole season, which is about 2 or 3 months. I think that would be more realistic to watch than someone literally doing it overnight, which, as Thomas Astruc says in this interview, seems to be what his view of people do when they change for the better. They just change, which just isn't true. They have a moment of realization and then they slowly start to change. Thomas says the fact that she'll face something nice and say, oh, I've been horrible, Marinette, what have I done? From now on I'll be, and it doesn't work like that. That's why it's called a redemption arc, not a redemption just singular moment. They have a moment of realization and then it's the arc, and they may, you know, backtrack a few times, like try and do something nice, but they end up reverting to their old ways temporarily, but then they get back on it. That's why it's called an arc. It's not a singular moment. Felix doesn't have a redemption arc, he has a redemption moment where he's on the roof on emotion, crying his eyes out, and then in pretension he's like, let's go, I'm a good boy now. Where's the change? Either it all happened off screen in whatever time period happens between emotion and pretension, or he just doesn't have one because Thomas's view is that people just change, which just doesn't, it's not how it works. Although I do definitely think it's very brave of Thomas and the team to admit that they don't know what a redemption arc is. Like I said, it takes time, which I think for me personally is why I felt so dissatisfied with the redemptions we've got so far in the show. Felix gets his moment at the end of emotion, and next time we see him in pretension, yeah, he does a few questionable things, but he's largely nice about them. He is quite a nice person in pretension, even though he does kidnap Kagami. He's quite nice about it. And Andre's moment of redemption seems to be on the rooftop with Gaby Baby, and then he's great, he's fine, he's a good person, apart from abandoning his daughter with an abuser. But other than that, he's a great person really after that. But in real life, which Thomas Astruc compares it to in this statement, it doesn't work like that. No one can change that quickly, especially when someone like Chloé has been like that for a long time. It is completely unrealistic to expect someone to change that quickly when they've been like that for as long as Chloé has. However, there is one thing that confuses me about his statement, is that he says, how would a character react to such and such, and towards the end he says Chloé has no reason to change. And I can get behind the second part, that she doesn't always have a good reason to change. However, in her final season 5 scene, which for Chloé was in Revolution, she has lost everything, all of her friends, her own dad. She's been completely humiliated and taken away by her mum. If she truly is going to be in the next season of the show, then right now Chloé has every reason to change. Because as Chloé stands right now, the last time we saw her in Revolution, Chloé has nothing, and with the way she broke down crying, I think it's pretty clear that Chloé knows she has nothing.
However,
the whole statement makes it seem like Thomas Astruc still has no intention of giving her a redemption when she has a reason to now, as she, as I said, has nothing, and she's aware she has nothing. Which, by the way, I did think she had reason to before. Being Queen Bee was a pretty good reason for her to want to be nicer, in my opinion, but like I said, now she absolutely has nothing. But it still seems like she's not going to get one because he just doesn't think Chloé is interested in that, when we already know she is. We see during season 2 and season 3 she is. For example, in episodes like Maladictator, Chloé is very interested. In Catalyst, she's actively protecting people at school from the Scarlet Akumas, and she does the same thing in Star Train. Chloé is very interested, but he's saying she's not. But surely he was in the room when those episodes were written, so which one is it? She's not interested, or you don't know what you're talking about? You gotta make your mind up, it can't be both. There are also 2 other statements they made during this interview that are kind of relevant that I want to bring up. One is about the Supreme. He said, oh, if only you knew. Nothing we do is meaningless. Thomas, Sebastian, team at General, if this is you writing with everything happening for a reason, I would really hate to see what would happen if you just did it without any planning at all. And the second statement is about Andre. In contrast to Chloé, Andre evolved as a character because we already had imagined a backstory. He had the potential to change, and that's where the beautiful scene comes from. I think it's magnificent, between Gaby Baby and himself on the roof of the hotel where he says, Gaby Baby, what's become of us? And yes, Andre did genuinely say, Gaby Baby, go back and rewatch Collusion if you don't believe me. We've forgotten the kids we used to be, but we know the kids they used to be, and we'd like to tell the story one day, to show what young kids they were, when they were struggling through Paris and weren't yet what we've come to know them in the series. He's sad about what's happening to his daughter. He's trying to change it, but he can't. He is proof that a character can change. So sad. He must be so sad that Chloé can't change. So sad. So depressing. So devastating that he just couldn't help but leave her with his abusive ex-wife. So sad. Was any logic present in the writing room with you during Revolution? Or no? Because what? However, as they say about the Supreme, apparently everything happens for a reason. And we'll get back to that in a second, but the interesting thing about the Andre statements is about how Andre is described. He has a backstory, and I'm like, unless a character in the show is very much a background character, for example, the doorman at the hotel, you should know what has happened to all of your characters in the past, because it will influence how they are now because of their developments. Mylène has no mum, therefore she acts a certain way towards Chloé because like, well, Chloé has no mum, but I don't either, and I don't act like this. Rose was really ill when she was much younger, and whilst we don't know what it was exactly, what her illness was, it affects her characterization because she's really kind to everyone due to it, and it also makes her really look up to Prince Ali, who goes and visits 6 children who would have been exactly like her when she was younger. Julica seems to have been really affected by whatever went on with her parents, which again they have their own backstory for, both Jagged and Anarcha, and then we have Max and his little backstory with his mum, as well as his relationship with Kim. They're best friends now, but we saw in Derision Kim had actually kind of bullied Max slightly, so they have a bit of a strange relationship going on that I think we're gonna hopefully learn more about soon. Or not, but I think it'd be really interesting if we did. So even if it's not a super long and embellished story, you should know what has happened to your characters prior to the show. Even if what happened was like, yeah, it wasn't very much, it was quite ordinary and boring, because it's gonna have an effect on them. And you should definitely know, especially when they're as central to the story as Chloé is. However, it's kind of confusing still because Chloé has a past, and we know she has a past. We're told in season 2, I'm pretty sure, that her mother abandoned her and Chloé was left largely on her own, and Adrien was her only friend for years. And in the statement they say Andre evolved as a character because we already had imagined a backstory. But Chloé already has a backstory. What is this logic? Why do they only get redeemed if you have a backstory? And if that's the criteria we're going with, Chloé has a backstory too, so she should get a redemption? And it just calls into this question, this whole nothing we do is meaningless. Well, clearly it is, to give Chloé a backstory explaining why she is the way she is, but then pretend it doesn't exist, which to be fair, most of the fandom pretend it doesn't exist. The amount of people I see defending Marinette being a weirdo towards Adrien after Derision is quite literally disgusting. I see it all over Twitter all the time, literally yesterday. I was just like, this is baffling to me. First of all, Derision was a massive retcon that it just doesn't make sense. It was done for 2 reasons. 1, to justify Marinette's actions, and 2, to make Chloé seem even worse than she actually is. It doesn't make sense. The trauma bit doesn't make sense. Marinette's trauma is related to how she was treated at school and at the pool. She has been to the pool several times in the show, and in almost every single episode of the show, she is at school. She would have a trauma response at least once to one of those locations, and she does not. I understand it was also under the event of being on a date, and she hasn't been to a date to either of those locations. Oh no, wait, but she has in the cafeteria at school in Deflagration. She was on a little date with Adrien. So she was on a date with school, so she would have a trauma response related to an event because she went on a date at school. School being an area where trauma is held for her because of how Chloé treated her. So it doesn't make sense. And she's also continually surrounded with people who knew what was going on, and by the bullies themselves, Chloé and Kim. Trauma doesn't work like that. She would have had a response much sooner than a whole year after it happened, because Derision is set near the end of the school year, both in the flashback and the rest of the episode. Secondly, at the end of the flashback, Marinette, when she's talking to Soculine, she's like, if I ever get a crush on a boy again, I'm gonna find out everything I can about him, which again is justifying how she feels towards Adrien because she never wants this to happen again. Fair enough. Oh wait, except she never does any of that towards Luca during season 3. She just dates Luca. She doesn't really know much about Luca. She just dates him anyway. Doesn't make sense. Thirdly, even if Marinette was genuinely traumatized by this, which I imagine someone would be, it doesn't justify what she does towards Adrian. Does it explain it? Yes. Does it excuse it? Absolutely not. Same with Chloe. Does Chloe being abandoned by her mum explain why she is the way she is? Yes. Does it give her a free pass to bully people? Absolutely not. But no one defends her. Chloe has been through an awful lot at such a young age. I'm not sure what age exactly her mum left her, no idea, we're never told. But she was a young child. And no one seems to care, but when this happened to Marinette, everyone's like, oh my god, poor girl, no wonder why she stalked Adrian. No. But like I said, it just calls into question this whole nothing we do is meaningless, when, sadly, it clearly is. To give Chloe a backstory explaining why she is the way she is, but then pretend it doesn't exist when you don't want her to evolve as a character and become a better person, doesn't make sense. But Andre gets to have his redemption moment because he has a backstory that we don't know about it yet. Does it only count if they have a backstory we don't know about yet? Is that why Felix gets his redemption moment and emotion and then we're told about his past in representation several episodes later? Does it only count if you don't know yet? If we've already been told that, oh well, we're screwed, they can't get a redemption, forget them. Which, by the way, now I've mentioned representation, I have some news about the episode. I know, boy, to tell you, my soul ascended to another plane of existence when I found out. Oh my god, I was nearly in tears. I couldn't stop thinking, oh my, I'm still angry about it. Anyway, in conclusion to my rant, because that's what this was, and I do not care, it was a rant, is that no one, real or fictional, is believably redeemed in a single moment, because things do not work like that. Change does not happen that quickly. That's why the abandoned Chloe redemption arc that ended in the season 3 finale will always be more believable and realistic and far more satisfying to watch than what the writers did to Felix and to Andre. Because no one changes in a single moment. And all the statements from Thomas and Sebastian and the team at large prove to me is that they don't actually know how to write redemptions. So I have zero faith in that aspect of the show moving forwards. And just as a general note, whether about real people or fictional people, is that if someone, like Chloe, is capable of changing and becoming an even worse person, as we see Chloe do, it shows us that they are indeed capable of change, including change for the better. If someone is capable of change for the worst, then they are more than capable of change for the better. All these statements show to me is that the writing team have a poor understanding of how to write character and character development, specifically redemptions. But anyway, besties, that's just what I think in my little scripted rant. I would love to know what you think about Chloe now we have these statements, and just leave her out the show at this point, because you don't know how to write her, so just write her out. That's my view. I love her, but you don't know what you're doing, so please just leave her alone. That's basically where I stand with it. But I would love to know, of course, what you all think, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!